Welcome to this week's episode of Let's Chat with Derick. I am your host, Derick Fage. As usual, I am excited to introduce our guest. Many of you watching right now are probably familiar with him from some of his charitable work and his community involvement, and of course, a mainstay at Darcy McGee's for so many years. But he has a new position. He is the Director of Connection and Engagement at Saunders Farm and Saunders Cider Company. I am joined by Jeff O'Reilly. Jeff, welcome to the show. So great to see you.
Hey, Derick. So great to see you as well. It's been a while.
It has. First of all, you look fantastic. And we're going to get to, this incredible journey you've been on. You've changed your lifestyle. You've decided to get healthier. But I want to start off like I do with most guests and just talk a little bit about, where you grew up and what your childhood was like. Take me back. Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in beautiful Timmins, Ontario, up in Northern Ontario, and I grew up in the famous South Porcupine, Ontario. It's a mining town up there. My dad was a millwright. He worked in the mines. He worked at a wafer board place. One of three kids. Had a paper route as a kid. A pretty simple life. We lived by train tracks, but we never discovered a dead body, kind of thing. And it was just a simple, wholesome life, and I loved it up there, and I loved the north. And I love nature in general.
So what brought you to Ottawa, Jeff?
Well, it's a funny story. I was working at a restaurant, a Casey's restaurant up in Timmins, and I was serving this one couple. And they were young and super fun. And I mean young, they were probably in their late 20s when I was in my early 20s. And they said, you know what, you're really funny. My little sister is moving to town for the summer, and she's a bombshell, and you guys are going to hit it off. And I'm like, okay, this was the worst tip ever. But anyways, so I end up meeting this girl, and lightning bolts happen, and it's all super exciting. And she's a vocal opera performance student at McGill. And so I was like, oh, okay. So we sort of were dating long distance for a while, and I'd spend a lot of time there. She'd spend a lot of time up in Timmins. But then I thought, I need to maybe get closer. And at the time, it was the late 80s. It seemed like Quebec maybe was going to separate, and my French, ce n'est pas très bien, outside of that one sentence, which is excellent. So I thought, you know what? Hey, I'm going to move closer. So I always liked Ottawa, and my parents grew up in the Ottawa Valley, and we'd spend a lot of time here. So I thought I would make the big jump. So I packed up my stuff, moved to Ottawa, and then 2.5 months later, we broke up. So,
wow.
and then I was, yeah. But then I was like, you know what? I kind of like Ottawa. I want to give it a shot. And that was in, I think, 1989. And I've loved it. And I've lived in, lots of neighborhoods and worked lots of jobs, and continue to love it, and even more over the last year and a half or two.
Jeff, what was your first job in Ottawa? Do you remember?
Well, you know what? So I came down, and I had hair down to here. I had a mullet that could win the Stanley Cup back then, and so actually, I remember looking for a job, and I got dropped off down at Parliament Hill, and I saw there was a job at Malibu Jack's at the corner of Bank and Hunt Club, and I'm like, oh, Bank Street, it's right there. I'm just going to walk down and drop off some applications on the way. So I don't know if anyone's walked that, but it was a pretty considerable walk. So I thought I would get to this destination around 2. I ended up getting there around 4, and I met Goldie Cranston was the general manager at the time, and I was applying for an assistant manager job. And we hit it off. We had a really great conversation. He's a super interesting man, and they're Taller Cranston's brother, super interesting family. Yeah, so we were chatting and all, and he says, I think I'd like to hire you, but you're going to have to cut your hair. So I decided, you know what, for I think at the time $19,000 a year, I was like, yeah, you know what, sounds like a good opportunity. I'll do it. So I cut my hair. I ended up working there. Malibu Jacks became Tucson's, and I worked at Tucson's and Tucson's West, and got to see some amazing music and local musicians and blues artists. And and really again loved Ottawa and loved the scene. And I was living in the in Hunt Club area then, and I loved it, and every time I moved to a different job or a different part of town, I got to explore and I got to see new things and meet new people. And again, the city of Ottawa, the people in Ottawa are just amazing.
Yeah, Jeff, it's amazing that you share, the long hair and everything, because I too, at around that age, I had the long hair and everything as well. And I was actually working for my dad's accounting firm at the time and had the long hair. I'd always wear it in a ponytail, but they would encourage me constantly to cut my hair. I didn't until I decided to get back into acting. And I thought, well, if I'm going to get into acting, I better cut my hair. So eventually, like you, I had to cut my hair for to give myself a better opportunity at a job. And that's what my agent said to me at the time as well. So that's pretty cool.
There
We have that
probably
in
just
common.
weren't enough there's probably weren't enough Tarzan or Marvel movies or vampire movies where that look was awesome, right? So
Exactly. You gotta make sure you hedge your bets on opportunities. So I mentioned, you were a fixture at Darcy McGee's. I had visited quite often, and when Monica, my wife, and I would visit, it's almost like instead of going to Darcy McGee's, let's go to Jeff's place. I mean, that's kind of what it felt like because you were such a fixture there. How did that job come to be?
well, so I had moved around a bit from a number of jobs, and I had heard that Prime, the company that I used to work for. So I worked at a Casey's in Timmins. That was part of a company called Prime Restaurants. They were opening a big Irish pub a block from Parliament Hill. And I'm like, is my name still Jeff O'Reilly? Who should be running that pub? I should go and work at that pub. So, I was one of the first couple dozen employees there. So started opening day back in 1997 and worked there and was exposed to just so much stuff and met so many interesting people and worked with so many fantastic people. Like some of the people that are still there or throughout the years are like family to me because we shared
Right.
so much. And even so, I'm trying to think that I guess because I was working with a guy by the name of Nick Lambros, who owns the Brew Table out in Bell's Corners, and we were working together, and I said, Nick, I want to do more, I want to be more, and he said, Jeff, whatever you want to do it. You want to get out in the community, you want to drive sales, you want to be more involved. I'm 100% supportive of whatever you want to do. And he was a mentor to me, and he was great. And I did. I started to do more and more charity stuff and give back to the community that gave so much to us. And I mean, that's something that's a lesson that my father taught me as a child, the importance of no matter how tough you think things are, somebody wishes they were in your shoes and you can help them out. And whenever you can help someone else, do it.
You mentioned community involvement. Let's talk a little bit about that, Jeff, because you and we worked through Ringside for Youth. I mean, I think that was one of the biggest charity events that you were a part of. Tell me about the importance of community involvement and some of the things that you were involved with.
Well, one of the first things that I got involved with was Bon Appetit Ottawa, actually, and so that was a food and wine show for charity, right? Like let's raise a glass for the kids. So as I came on board, I started doing sponsorship and communication, and got a lot of people involved. Brought in media and celebrity guests, up the entertainment value, and worked with a really really solid board of directors on that, and got to meet a lot of really great people. And I was involved in like Ottawa Historical Society, Boys and Girls Club, the Paul Kennedy Foundation. My daughter has diabetes, so Paul Meek, who owns Kitchissippi, and I both have children with diabetes, so we did a lot of work together for JDRF. But the surprising thing was, I was pretty active. Actually, even in that time, uh, Mark and Angela Saunders out at Saunders Farm were doing a music festival called Strawberry Moon, which was a Celtic music festival. And I got involved with the promotion for them, and that's how I met them. But we'll get to that part of the story later.
Yeah.
As I'm working at Darcy McGee's, Steve Gallant, who had started Ringside for Youth, was it was the fifth year, and they wanted to bring in some Irish fighters, and they were bringing in Jerry Cooney, the amazing boxer and total sweetheart of a gentleman.
Yeah.
And they, and so his friend Grant Cobb had started the pub division that I was working for, and he said, you know, hey Grant, can we want to Irish theme it up a bit? Do you have anybody who can help? And he's like, yeah, my guy Jeff O'Reilly's a keener, and come and meet him, and he's pretty well connected, and he'll start helping you out. So so I was like, yeah, for sure. We brought Guinness beer in, we brought an Irish band in, I got someone to sing the Irish national anthem. And I got exposed to the event. So the first time we go to the event and I see, it's 5 rounds of amateur boxing. It's at the Cattle Castle. Everyone's dressed to the nines. People are smoking cigars and drinking scotch, and the live boxing is super fun. So they have this thing called a knockout draw. So everybody, you bought tickets for a couple $100 and you could win 10 grand. So and they basically knock people out until there's the last 5. So our table's ticket that I didn't buy, but our table's ticket, uh, we're in the last 5. So they're like, get in there. I'm like, what? Go in the ring. I'm like, sure, okay. I go in the ring, knockout, 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 knockout. I think it was Gord Hodnott and I were the last 2 guys in the ring, and they're like, do you want to split it or do you want to keep it? And that's Angelo Sarukis, who's hilarious.
Yeah.
He's a guy who would wind you up. And I was like, no, I'm going to go for this. And so we win. And I'm like, immediately, I'm like, we're giving half of it back. We're going to give, we're going to donate $5,000 back. This is an event for the kids. We're giving back. And they were like, whoa, what the heck is that? No one had ever done that before. And I thought, hey, it wasn't my money. It was my ticket. So I got nothing to lose. Hey, we just won 5 grand. That's awesome, right? And that was great. And so they really enjoyed having me on board, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I said to them, wow, this is such a cool setup. Your bars must make so much money. And they're like, not really.
Really?
The Ottawa Nepean Sports Club was running the bars, and everybody was being paid, and all, and there were a number of expenses, certainly, that were involved. But I was like, I'll do it for free. We'll run the bar and we'll donate all the proceeds and all the profits back. And I got all of my staff the next year to volunteer, and we ran the bars for free, and we made a couple $1,000, and that was good. And then we kept making more and more and more. And then Lisa Patel from Darcy's Canada came on board to help run the auction, and we raised more and more and more. And I continued to be more involved in the board. Sat on that board for 20 years. Was the chair year 11, and then the last 7 years, I think. And we just
Right.
continue to grow and grow and grow, and it just it was a juggernaut. It was the who's who of Ottawa. There, we were able to raise $3.5 million net to the Boys and Girls
Wow.
Club over those 25 years. But we decided around year 23 that some of the people have been on the board for, again, 20 years, some of them 25, like since the very start. And it's hard, and volunteer burnout is something that people, I don't think, realize is a real thing when you give so much time back, and that becomes part of your schedule, and it's hard. So lots of charity events, people will sit on a board for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they're out. They've
Yeah.
had it, they're done. So to have decades of people, and then also to have, and look at the people on that, like the Brian and Dick Cooper, Tom Hicks, we would have actually, Dick and Brian Cooper's kids would work the event. My kid would come and volunteer for the event. Steve Gallant's kids would volunteer. Like, when you're second generational of people in supporting your cause, just truly amazing. And I'm thankful, as I've never personally had to use the Boys and Girls Club, but going in and seeing what they're doing and the impact that they've made on the lives of young people, it makes our community better. And so I am happy and thankful that I've been given the opportunity to give back and to be involved in these things that have had such a great impact.
Yeah, well, I can say, from personal experience, I was with you guys for about 10 years, and one of the proudest times, of my life is being able to give back for that event, because as you said, like $3.5 million over those 25 years is incredible. I had so much fun. It was a great run. There's no doubt about it. I
Well, for
want to
sure. And
talk
even when you
about.
think $3.5 million, sorry, a hundred
No, go
dollars
ahead.
sends a kid to camp. $100 sends a kid to a camp for a week.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you look at
Yeah.
that, and you're like, you know, wow. And then we did some sense rink stuff. You see, like the little clubhouse that we started at was like pretty tiny. It was the old, I think it was a fire station at one point in time, and Deborah
Yeah.
Dines. And it was small, and we used to do our meetings there. But over the course of us doing ringside, the crime rate in that one neighborhood went down 93%. And I know the last time
Wow.
that I was there, which is impactful, right? But the
Yeah.
last time I was there, they have like an NBA sized ball court, and the Senators and Ringside for Youth put a big rink in the back. And and these kids are getting, Shopify and all these other people are giving them like brand spanking new computers. They're teaching them skills, and they're keeping kids active, engaged, exercising, minds healthy, and wanting to do more with their lives. And it's like, I'm like, wow, like who would
Yeah.
want to be part
It's
of
pretty
that?
special. Yeah, no kidding. I want to fast forward a bit, Jeff, because as I said, you were a fixture at Darcy McGee's for all of those years. A global pandemic hits, and then unfortunately, they let you go. Tell me a little bit about that and the effect it had on you.
Yeah, so I mean, Darcy McGee's is a big, beautiful Irish pub, and I learned so much from being there, and I grew as a person. But not only did I grow as a person, I grew out as a person, and I became very heavy in all of that. And so, as the pandemic happened, and we realized that there wasn't going to be people, there weren't going to be people in those government offices anymore. That Parliament wasn't sitting. That no one was in the hotels. The National Arts Centre didn't have shows. Tourism was not a thing, and we were not in a residential area or even have parking.
Right.
It looked like the business was going to be bleak for the next couple of years. So the company made a business decision and let me go. And for at the time 54-year-old man to be faced with unemployment in a scenario where my industry was completely locked down, it could have been pretty depressing. But I took some time and I thought about it and I said, I'm going to look at this as an opportunity and what can I do with this time to improve myself. And so I started reading. I started reading about mindfulness, and I started reading about gratitude, and I started reading a plethora of self-help books. And I started exercising because I realized at the time I was heavy, and through the pressures of working a ton, being involved in a lot of charities and community stuff, I was also teaching the Prud'homme beer certification program. So I'm a beer sommelier. I had that column for 3.5, 4 years with Metro Ottawa, writing about beer every week. It seemed like I had a problem with saying no. I just wanted to help and do whatever I could wherever I could. Um,
Right.
and and to I guess the detriment of my personal health. So I said, I'm going to make it a point to get healthy. So I bought the smartwatch. I started Noom, which is this really great app that tells you about food and eating and mood. And so I now look at eating and food differently. Exercise is part of my daily routine. Rest and
Right.
relaxation and meditation and good sleep, hydration, and managing my stress. Right. So, and one of the things that helped me manage
Right.
my stress was walking. So I started walking and I started skating and I'd go snowshoeing with like Randy Fitzpatrick, my buddy, and a couple of other people, and I was just active. And along the way, I started taking pictures of what I was seeing because it seemed to me, I'd lived in Ottawa for 31 years, and maybe there was parts of the city that I hadn't seen in a while. And so I was starting to see different things, but also I was starting to see things differently. And I was more appreciative of the beauty that our city has and what we have to offer. So as I'm taking pictures and I'm blowing up my social media because, hey, I'm unemployed. I've got nothing else to do but do these things. I'm sharing these experiences, and it's really funny how many people seem to gravitate towards the positivity and just seeing the things. And these are people who've lived in Ottawa their whole lives or went to school in Ottawa and now are away, but they're like, hey, where is that place? What is that place? Wow, I haven't seen that place in forever. Oh my God, that brings back so many memories. And and also people who were sitting on their couch, and people who were not getting out, and people who were terrified at the prospect of catching this horrible virus, or becoming ill, or a loved one's ill. So I continued to do it, and I was impressed by how much support and an outpouring of thanks that I got from people, and even I'm like, well, hey, you look at that, I've walked 1,000,000 steps now, and I've lost 20 pounds, and I'm feeling great, and people are like, yeah, good for you, that's awesome, you're inspiring us, and more and more and more people, to the point where when I finally was offered a job and announced that I was employed. I was down 52 pounds, I think, at the time, and I put this post up, and people went crazy, like thousands of responses and so many messages, and people, because I mean, I got a job with Saunders Farm, and Saunders Farm, in my mind, is an iconic destination.
Oh,
It's 100
absolutely.
acres of happiness and love and excitement, and it seemed like the perfect fit. So everyone seems to be excited about all of this as they followed my journey. They've watched me along the
Yeah.
way go from a big maybe jolly but super not happy guy with a big old beard to someone who's thin and engaged and excited about a new opportunity. So all of a sudden, Carolyn Phillips writes this wonderful piece for the Ottawa Business Journal about me and my journey, and how great the fit is to Saunders Farm. And then, Samantha LaPrade interviews me for her show on City News. Dennis Armstrong interviews me. And all of a sudden, I'm just like, did I just have a press conference? Like what's going on? That guy loses job, cheers up, gets a job in a great place, news at 11, but I mean, it seemed to me like it was a feel good story that resonated with people
Yeah.
at the time, in a time when feel good stories were few and far between, and the news
Mhm.
as a whole was typically depressing.
Agreed. Yeah.
So I was excited to for all of this had happened, because, as I mentioned earlier, I'd known Mark and Angela since the late 90s, and my ex-wife and I used to hang out with them quite a bit. In fact, my daughter just handed me a picture of her when she was little, and Mark and I at Saunders Farm, and their son Aiden, who's 21 now, 1 week old, in a little pumpkin beanie for the little parade of Halloween that they did back then. And I was just like, wow, that's so crazy. But I was
Yeah.
excited to be given an opportunity. So anyone who knows Mark and Angela knows that they are just high energy bundles of love, and they
That's for sure.
you know what, I just hear, I hug every time I think of them. They're just so awesome. But they do things at a breakneck pace, and the way that business has evolved. Strawberry Moon was to celebrate strawberries, and they planted strawberries in the farm, and then after the second Strawberry Moon, they plowed the strawberries under. They were doing pumpkins. This year is the 30th haunting season, and
Yeah.
Halloween at Saunders Farm is like nothing else. It
Oh,
is
it's a
scare
game
the
changer.
living daylights out of you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Oh
so
yeah.
cool.
My
So
daughter, my
so
daughter is in love with Halloween, and every year she goes with her friends. I mean, as you said, from a baby up until now, she's 16 years old now. It's like one of the highlights of her year every year. As a matter of fact, she just recently auditioned too to be a part of the haunting season. So, that, I mean, I think every person has had a visit at least once, especially during the haunting season, to Saunders. I just The haunting season's big, but I want to talk about your role. So tell me about your
well, here,
role
this
as
is where
chef at Saunders.
I was actually segueing to that.
Okay,
So
perfect.
I was So I was familiar with that, and so Mark had a manager meeting, and he said, "Okay, I want to have a cidery on the farm." They had planted apples as children. They wanted to see a cidery and basically apple cider as part of the farm. So he says 5 years. I've got a 5 year plan to do this. Then he finds out that Pete Rainville from Flying Canoe Hard Ciders in Spencerville, which was Ottawa's original hard cider, was going to sell his company. So Mark says, "Okay, I'm going to buy it." So the 5 year plan becomes all of a sudden a 5 week plan. And then, as he says, "Okay, now I need someone to help me with this. What are we going to do?" And he, excuse me, says, "I wonder what Jeff's doing." So he gives me a shout and he calls me and he says, "Hey, we've got this thing and we've got some other things on the go. And you've got, a really great network and a really great positive attitude and some great business skills. Would you want to come on board and do this and maybe help me with some other business development opportunities?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's make this work." So we talked for a bit. And at the end of June, I took on this job. We are now making cider on the farm. We have planted apple trees. We have an orchard planned. We've got bigger structures planned. We turned a 185-year-old log barn into a cider tasting room. We now have these really great Flying Canoe Saunders cider cans, which are awesome. We've got some really great hats, which are great for your long hair when you've got all of the wings going on. We've got zip lines going over the hedge mazes, like North America's largest collection of hedge mazes. And we are looking at some really, really great stuff. I work with a vibrant, strong, supportive team of 20 somethings mostly, and they keep
Wow.
me on my toes and they support each other. And everybody, top to bottom, in that farm is lovely and wonderful. And I'm just so excited to be part of something new and fun
Yeah.
and exciting. And just keep an eye on us because things are happening and it's awesome. I'm fired up.
Oh, Jeff, you are the perfect fit, and I've done interviews over the years, through my 11 years at Rogers before I left for Montreal for a while, and then just recently, Operations Support Local, we did an interview at Saunders Farm, and as you said, just an amazing family, so innovative too, and you're a perfect fit for the role, Jeff. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I want to remind everybody it's the 30th haunting season. There's the cider house now. You mentioned the zip line. There's the
Zip
sawmill
line's
as well.
coming. Actually,
So
zip
lots
line
of
might be
things.
open by the time this airs.
Fantastic. So looking forward to
Yeah.
that. You can visit that website, of course, to find out more. Jeff, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Derick, always my pleasure. Thanks so much. Cheers.
Cheers. All right, that's it for this episode of Let's Chat with Derick. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.